It all began with a grand vision. India's plan for a high-speed railway to connect two major cities and supercharge the economy. India partnered with China, leveraging their expertise in rapid rail construction. For a while, everything looked on track. Groundwork was laid, politicians posed for photos, and the public was promised a modern marvel. But as 2025 arrived, the project screeched to a halt. Construction sites fell silent, cranes stood idle, and the completion date quietly slipped by. Frustration grew, and the Indian government needed a scapegoat. The blame quickly landed on China. Officials accused Chinese companies of using faulty materials and sabotaging the project, fueling a media frenzy. News channels ran with the narrative: China was the villain, and India was the betrayed partner. This story fit perfectly into existing geopolitical tensions, making it easy for the public to accept. The blame game was in full swing, with China painted as the sole reason for the failure. Ministers gave fiery speeches promising to hold China accountable and seek international arbitration. The official story: China abandoned the project, leaving India with a billion-dollar mess. But the real issue wasn't just about bad steel or lazy workers. It was about money. While India blamed China, a massive financial elephant sat in the room. India owed China $2 billion. This wasn't debt from the railway, but from earlier trade and infrastructure deals, telecom equipment, power plants, and more. For years, China had sent reminders, but India delayed, hoping the issue would fade. Imagine hiring a contractor for a new kitchen but never paying for the bathroom they finished years ago. Eventually, the contractor stops showing up. That's what happened here. India wanted a new railway, but hadn't paid for old projects. Public statements ignored this debt, focusing only on alleged Chinese failures. The $2 billion was the real reason work stopped. Chinese companies under Beijing's orders refused to continue without payment. The railway wasn't a victim of shoddy work, it was a hostage in a financial standoff. The Indian government's narrative left out this crucial context. The real story was about trust and unpaid bills, not just technical disputes. The project's collapse was inevitable without financial resolution. Mega projects need more than steel and concrete. They need financial trust. India's unpaid $2 billion wasn't a minor issue. It was a deal breaker. Chinese firms aren't charities. They expect payment for their work. At first, China slowed construction, hoping for a payment plan. When that didn't work, they escalated to a full work stoppage, the nuclear option. Both sides suffered. China absorbed costs. India was left with a half-built railway. Beijing drew a line: no new work until old debts were paid. This is the reality of global construction. Contracts are only as strong as the willingness to honor them, especially the payment clauses. Brilliant engineering means nothing if the money doesn't flow. The unfinished railway stands as a $2 billion monument to this principle. You can't build on credit and hope forever. Eventually, the bill comes due. And when it does, everything grinds to a halt. India's stalled railway isn't unique. Pakistan faced a similar fate with the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, or CPEC. CPEC's crown jewel, the Main Line 1 railway, was meant to transform Pakistan's economy, but Pakistan's debt to China ballooned to nearly $30 billion, much of it from power plants. This debt made it impossible to secure new loans for the railway. In 2025, China withdrew funding, leaving Pakistan scrambling. The pattern is clear. Both India and Pakistan's rail dreams were derailed by unpaid debts, not technical failures. Gwadar Port, another CPEC project, is now a commercial flop, with most revenue going back to Beijing to service debt. Early in the Belt and Road Initiative, China signed massive deals, sometimes overlooking partners' financial stability. Now, Beijing is a more cautious creditor, refusing new projects until old bills are paid. The era of blank check diplomacy is over. Countries with large debts are finding new investment has dried up. Financial sustainability now trumps grand visions. China's infrastructure ambitions face challenges far beyond India and Pakistan. The Middle Corridor, a rail and sea route from China to Europe bypassing Russia, was supposed to be a game changer. On paper, it looked brilliant. In reality, it's a logistical nightmare. China invested little in the hard infrastructure needed. The route is slow, expensive, and handles just 5% of the traffic of the main Russian route. Key projects like the China-Kyrgyzstan-Uzbekistan Railway have been stuck in negotiations for decades. Even with a new agreement in 2024, construction hasn't started and will take years. The middle corridor shows that drawing lines on a map doesn't create real trade routes. These mega projects require political will, cross-border cooperation, and sustained investment, none of which are guaranteed. The failures in India and Pakistan are part of a larger pattern. Even without financial disputes, these projects are incredibly hard to execute. The dream of a connected Eurasia is far more complicated than anticipated. Unfinished bridges and tracks are monuments to the gap between vision and reality. At the heart of these failed projects is the erosion of trust. Infrastructure partnerships are like marriages. They need open communication and mutual respect. India's unpaid debt was the first breach of trust with China. Once money issues surfaced, every delay became a source of suspicion. India suspected China of stalling. China saw India's complaints as cover for non-payment. The collaborative spirit vanished, replaced by an adversarial dynamic. Once trust is lost, it's nearly impossible to regain. A reputation for not paying bills haunts future deals. Just ask Pakistan. India's public blame game may have worked domestically, but it damaged its international credibility. Why would anyone invest billions if they risk being vilified and left unpaid? These projects fail not just from technical issues, but from broken relationships. The unfinished railway is a lesson in the cost of lost trust. Cutting corners, financially or technically, is a dangerous temptation in big projects. India's delayed payment was a gamble that backfired, leading to a costly shutdown. Technical shortcuts can be even more dangerous. Recent tragedies, bridge collapses in India and China, show the deadly risks of rushing or skimping on quality. When financial disputes arise, the risk of technical compromise increases. Unpaid contractors are less likely to prioritize safety or quality. The focus shifts from building for the future to minimizing losses. There are no real shortcuts in infrastructure meant to last generations. Whether dodging payments or using substandard materials, the price is always paid in the end. That price might be a stalled project, a diplomatic crisis, or even lost lives. The unfinished railway and collapsed bridges are stark reminders. Cutting corners always comes at a high cost. What's the takeaway? First, pay your bills. Financial reliability is the bedrock of global commerce. Building on unpaid debts is like building on quicksand. India's ambitions require a reputation for honoring commitments. Second, don't let politics poison partnerships. India's public blame campaign may have scored points at home, but it damaged credibility abroad. China, too, should enforce financial red lines earlier to avoid crises. Robust dispute resolution mechanisms are essential. Lawyers and accountants should handle disputes, not politicians and media. This whole episode is a wake-up call for better contract enforcement and communication. For citizens, always look past the headlines. The real story is often more complex than the official narrative. The blame is rarely one-sided. Dig deeper, and you'll find the truth is more complicated and more interesting than the headlines suggest. The failed railway is a lesson in financial discipline, diplomacy, and the dangers of oversimplification. The future of India-China cooperation looks rocky after this railway fiasco. Before talks can resume, India must address the $2 billion debt. This will require a political climb-down and a concrete payment plan. Even then, rebuilding trust will be a monumental task. China will demand stricter guarantees, making future deals more expensive and complex. The era of easy credit and optimistic partnerships is over. India may seek new partners, but Chinese firms offer speed and scale few can match. Moving away from China could mean slower, costlier projects. India faces a tough choice: repair the relationship or accept higher costs elsewhere. The failed railway is a crossroads for both nations, a monument to mistrust or a lesson for future cooperation. If both sides can resolve their issues and set new rules, they might get back on track. For now, the India-China Express remains indefinitely delayed, stranded by mistrust and unpaid bills.